What an obedient computer. I'll be like that. A lot of new people are here today. You're more than welcome, of course. And if you have any question, you could ask now, or even if you've been here for 20 years, if you have a question, you can still ask. I'm still asking questions after 45 years of practice. So, any questions? Just as I thought. We have a bodhisattva question.
So does this practice take over your life? Ting said something like, after a while, this practice takes over your life. Is that?
Takes over? Takes
over your life. Is that well, if I understood what she said correctly?
Okay, so let me respond to that in some way. That could mean two things. Taking over your life might mean there's no room for anything else, only practice. Or it could mean that it deeply informs your life, and that's perhaps the way you mean.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it does not take over your life in that you don't have time to do anything else. So both Zen Master Hae, Judy, and I, even we started practice. Judy started before I did, a couple of years before I did. So I started in 1978 when I met Judy and started practice in this school. And it takes hours a day if you really take it seriously. And if you take it seriously, you eventually do retreats, not just the 1 or 2 day retreats or even the week-long retreats, but the 90-day kyoche, for instance. And that is all-consuming. And all you can do during those retreats is practice. So even during the break period, you would never allow yourself to sneak out your paperback novel and read it. And just don't do that. It's 100%. And retreats are like that, whether they're 2 days or 90 days. And so they become, retreats in that sense become a model for how you live your entire life. Yeah, 100%. Not just for yourself, for all beings. So that's the direction of our practice, all beings. So yeah, I would say it certainly can, and I would say even should, in some deep sense, take over your life. But I still find time to play 3-cushion billiards every Saturday morning at the billiard studio downtown. And now Tom has joined us. And to do a lot of other things. I still ride my bicycle. I'm starting to ride it again anyway. And I still have astronomy as a hobby that's pretty much lifelong. Since I was 10 years old, I've looked at the sky at night and learned the constellations, and we become old friends after a while. So just want to give you an idea. I'm not saying my life is so amazingly complete, but yeah, a complete life with Zen practice really at the heart of it is how I would respond. Yes?
You might say something about jobs and children.
Well, we did have jobs for most of our lives. We were both at the university and retired at pretty much the same time. How long was I at the university? I don't think I can, decades, let's just leave it at that. And Judy also. And, university career can be itself all-consuming. Your research, if you take it seriously, and we both did. Your service, I was department chair for 10 years and director of the honors program for 5 years, while still maintaining, a complete load. How did we continue practice after all? And of course, we raised a child who is now 42. Hey, I got it right. 42, 42 years old, and we're still involved in his life. And we have a larger circle of friends who, a larger circle you can find with a cue stick in their hands, but there are other people too that I stay in touch with. So you don't become a hermit. You can, of course, you can become a monk, but very few monastics are hermits. They have jobs supporting the monastery, the Zen center that they're associated with. And we have quite a few monks, male and female, monastics in our school. Most of them are in Korea, but there are quite a few actually in this country associated with various Zen centers. One of our original members, is about ready to retire. Kind of have to talk him into retirement, and he was here for many years, and is still active. So, yeah, complete life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I can't imagine actually what my life would have been like if Judy hadn't wandered into the first meeting of what was to become the Kansas Zen Center, and asked me where the practice is going to be. And many of you have heard this before, and I said, with stars in my eyes, oh yes. So yeah, complete life. Are there any other questions?
Since the microphone seems to end up in my
Yes,
hands for some reason,
you might as well ask a question.
I might as well. To my naive self, all this talk of monasticism and retreat and what have you sort of implies what I think is not actually, but it sounds almost like there's a separation between life and practice, but I imagine that that's not how you feel about it.
Well,
So if you
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I'm not sure I understand.
So with all this talk of monasticism and retreats and such, there's sort of like this implication that there's some sort of like separation between the practice and the life.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's how it's meant, but if you could maybe talk a little bit about how practice integrates into your day-to-day life and how a monk can have a job, how a teacher can have a child, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So we do daily practice, 5 days a week at the Zen Center, and it's recommended that you do as many of those practices as you can. And also on days when there is no regular practice here, to practice at home. And if any of you want advice on what kind of home practice we would recommend, very briefly I'll say, have a dedicated space, and you might not have an entire room, but a part of one room becomes your meditation space, perhaps some picture on the wall. It's easy to get a mat and a cushion and line everywhere. I guess Dharma Crafts is still in business, right? So they're connected with our school. So go to Dharma Crafts online and get yourself equipped. Okay? And then consult individually, I would say, with a teacher as to what exactly your practice should be. But I'll say briefly, keep it reasonable, certainly when you start. It might not be a good idea to commit yourself to, say, 2 hours of practice every day. A half hour would be good, and 20 minutes is all right, and you can get by with 10 minutes. And it's good if it includes various components of our practice. So maybe not just sitting, but some chanting, maybe just chant the Heart Sutra. Or if you want to chant something that doesn't have any meaning, so you don't have to think about it, you can chant the Great Dharani, which is the last of the 4 chants that we did. I once chanted the Great Dharani 100 times a day for 100 days. This was not by my choice, but I did it. And it really is a wonderful practice. It's just 100%. And some scholars try to figure out what maybe it originally meant, but a Dharani doesn't have meaning. Well, it has great meaning, but not verbal linguistic meaning. So in consultation with the teacher, is what I recommend, a brief practice that you can commit to at the same time of day, whether it's morning or evening, every day that you don't come to the Zen Center. If you live in town, think about coming to the Zen Center for Tuesday morning, Thursday morning, Saturday morning, Wednesday evening, as well as on Sunday. So we have 5 practices a week, 1 evening practice and 2 early morning practices and 2 later morning practices. Well, not really, goes later, but Saturday still starts at 6:30. Or maybe choose just one of these. Maybe you feel you can't commit, shouldn't commit at first to the whole shebang, but pick one of these practices and just come. We'd love to see you. I can guarantee you there will be a mat and a cushion open for you. And even if you bring 5 friends, there will still be mats and cushions. So the idea is to make it a regular part of your life. I grew up Catholic. Catholic, every Sunday you go to Mass. There's actually, back then, I don't know what Catholicism does now, but back then there was a morning Mass every day of the week. And I often went because I was an altar boy, and so I was assigned, to go. And so like early morning spiritual practice, goes back to my childhood. There was a big interim between Catholicism and Buddhism. And I guess I didn't do anything then. Damn, I wasted my life. When you look back at it. So please take advantage of the life that you have. I'm sure you're well aware that it doesn't last forever. And you don't know when it's going to end. No one guarantees your life. Yes.
So I interpreted the question another way, and I'm wondering if you could respond to this interpretation,
Yes.
which was not how do you practice into your life, but how does practice inform
Yes.
the rest of your life? Like when you said, I don't know where I'd be without it.
When you said what?
You said
Yeah.
earlier, I don't know where I'd be without it.
Yeah, I don't know where I would be without it. So that suggests that I think it's had a positive influence on my life. First of all, it's not a guarantee. You can practice regularly and still screw up royally. I've done that. But mostly you won't screw up royally. It makes you, we don't really regard our Zen practice as really introspective. It doesn't have to be. It's more outward directed. But your practice, your formal practice can be, what am I? On the inhalation and dono on the exhalation. So that suggests a direction towards self-awareness, self-knowledge. And that direction actually can be there no matter what the form of your practice is. Maybe you just do the Great Dharani, and that's absolutely fine. But having any kind of regular practice that you take seriously and stay with, and I think this is what you were getting to, can be transformative. And I think one of the ways to express this transformation is that your life becomes not for me. So most things that we do regularly, we might do, well, you might play billiards regularly, you know, and that's not a not for me practice. It could be, and in fact, Zen practice can spill over into everything else that you regularly do in your life and kind of redirect its energy into a not for me, but for all beings. That direction. So that's kind of a broad view. In maybe smaller ways, I've found that regular practice makes me, in general, a more responsible person. There's a greater chance that I will perform all of my duties, honor all of my responsibilities, treat everyone in my life with greater consideration and perhaps understanding of what they are going through. We become so preoccupied with our problems, it's sometimes difficult that this is a universal problem. So it can make you more aware in those ways. So I think it's transformative in the sense of awareness of your own direction in life and how you can help this world. Would you have anything to add to that? Maybe you had something else in mind. No, okay. Well,
I have
I'm pretty.
a request question. First of all, I wish to thank Ting for mentioning something that was seems very important to me, and I'd kind of like you to maybe pick up on it if you can, and expound a little bit more. But it's the idea of developing the habit you're speaking of right now, and that she mentioned, of doing little things, those little, almost meaningless types of things that we do or don't pay attention to, that become part of our life and embed the truth of this practice. I lie in bed on the weekend mornings when, like on Sunday morning, I don't have to be up at 6 o'clock practice. Okay. But I'm in such a habit of waking up at that time that I don't need alarm. I'm up, and it's like, okay, so go do some bows and then have breakfast and get ready for Sunday practice.
Can you focus on your question and?
Yeah, well, in carrying over the small things in our life like that, is there more that you can add to it than what Ting mentioned?
I'm afraid I don't remember everything that you mentioned, but I remember nodding my head symbolically or internally for each one of them. So that was a good list, Ting, I think. I don't know that I can add to it, but I would say that in general, the direction that you're pointing is the direction that we have to go. That every moment of our lives is significant. Doesn't mean you can't relax. You really need to relax. You have to sleep. You have to refresh yourself. But those intervals too, are important. But most important is to keep the overall direction of your life clear. That's what this practice does for me. I'm not saying that other spiritual practices don't do that, and I wouldn't speak for any of them. I don't think Zen Master Hae would either. I mean, we both had religious upbringings, Judaism and Catholicism. And Judaism is still with us. That is, I accompany Judy in her Judaism is maybe the best way to put it. But Buddhism, Zen practice does not require that you give up any other spiritual practice that you have, or any practice that you have. I found that it can inform, spiritual practice, other spiritual practices, and can inform everything you do, to the point that I have begun writing a book, Zen and the Art of Billiards. So I don't know that I will ever finish it. It's a little embarrassing to bring it up. But Zen and the Art of Archery was the first Zen book that I read sometime in the 60s when it came out. And it turned out that it was completely bogus. I won't get into that, but and I don't know, I may finish this book. Zen can inform any activity in your life, so it's not like there's nothing to this, but it just sounds so damn pretentious. It's time to stop. We're going to have, thank you all very much for your questions and your attention, and we have announced